along those lines, what are your thoughts on graphic images?
Well, so I spent a good portion of my pro-life career using abortion victim photography with the ministry I used to work for, the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform, as a tool to educate the culture as to what is happening. And although I have a new ministry now, Love Unleashes Life, as we've said, I absolutely still believe in the power of that particular tool to break through the lies and to bring light onto the darkness of what is abortion and change people's minds. But I think abortion victim photography is a tool like any tool. It can be used well, or it can be used poorly.
How can it be used well and how can it be used poorly?
So I think a way to use it well, first of all, is to have the user be well-trained in reaching the head as well as the heart, being a very solid ambassador for the logic of the pro-life perspective, knowing how to articulate it, but also being deeply steeped in a compassionate and empathetic understanding of those who are wounded so as to know when they need to proceed more gently with people in conversation. So having the user already in holding that image or presenting that image in pamphlet form, whatever the case may be, coming from that place. Then the image themselves, I often have heard it said by one of my pro-life mentors, Greg Cunningham, who has worked in the pro-life movement for decades. He said, when you hold up a picture of abortion, abortion protests itself. In other words, we shouldn't have to say much. The reality of what abortion does is what's yelling at people. So I think there's nothing wrong with saying abortion kills children, but what I often did at CCBR was we would actually just have the image of the aborted child with the word choice. We wouldn't say abortion is killing. We would just take the word positively associated with it, put in the image of the end result, and let the passerby come to their conclusion. Is this a choice? What does this choice do? And then use that almost confusing image like the word choice, but then that picture, and draw them into a conversation. And
this happened recently with Miley Cyrus. I'm not sure if you saw that. There was a cake, and I think she said abortion is healthcare, and she's
heard
licking
about
the
that.
cake.
Yeah, she licks things a lot. That's weird.
Yeah, hammers, cakes. So but someone kind of photoshopped this and put a dead baby where the cake was, and it was her face licking.
Oh,
licking
wow.
the dead
I
baby.
did not see that.
Yeah, and you think, but then what do you say to people who say, well, aren't you traumatizing children who may not yet be ready to view such an image?
So I would say if you took abortion victim photography to an area where only children were present, that would be
Like
a problem.
Kindergarten.
Exactly. When abortion victim photography is taken to the general public, it's almost like the principle of double effect. You're not targeting children, you're targeting those who are old enough to have abortions, believing they're old enough to see abortions. That's who you're taking your message to. You just recognize that sometimes when you do that, there will be smaller children around. And so in that case, I say, what's worse? Seeing a child seeing an abortion image or a child being an abortion image. And the reality is, if let's say 5-year-old children were being killed on street corners and you were walking down the street with a 4-year-old, would your first thought be, how dare these people kill 5-year-olds in front of my 4-year-old? Or would your first thought be, how dare these people on the street corner be killing a 5-year-old?
Gotcha.
You set your child in the arms of someone who's safe and you run to intervene.
Wow.
And so I think that's how we need to look at this, is that there are children being killed, just not on street corners.
Yeah.
They're being killed behind the closed doors of abortion clinics, and people aren't responding because they don't know, because they perceive it as a positive thing. And so we need to bring what's in darkness into the light, and we need to, again, communicate truth and love. But if love is willing the other's good, that means warning people. And I remember meeting a woman who'd had an abortion who through tears said to me, no one told me it looked like that. And she would have made a very different choice only a few months before I met her, if only someone had told her. And I contrast her with another woman that I met who had seen abortion victim photography and never spoke, interestingly, to my colleagues who had been showing the images, but she was pregnant and she was scheduled for an abortion and she canceled her appointment and only serendipitously months later met some of our team members. And when she found out what they did as a job, she realized, oh my gosh, you're the people.
Oh, wow.
You're the people who I saw on the street. And when the day she gave birth, she invited a couple of my colleagues to the hospital where that baby was born, who would have otherwise been killed had she not
like
seen and looked like, right.
So
right.
you're not against, say, billboards of, fetuses who've been... Because it sounded like in the beginning you were saying there's a right way to do it.
Right.
And it sounded like you were saying like this person ought to know how to respond and how to help people process what they're seeing.
I think, if you have abortion victim photography and you say things like, if you have an abortion, you're going.
That, by the way, abortion victim photography. I've never heard it put that way.
Right.
There's a reason you're putting it that way, isn't there?
Absolutely, because I have learned time and again in this debate, language matters.
Yeah.
What we say matters. Words are not meaningless.
Yeah.
And abortion supporters have been very wise in using language like choice, reproductive justice, and so forth, because it sounds positive.
You can't be against choice,
exactly.
healthcare, reproductive rights.
Exactly. So our job is to define all their words.
Yes.
And our job is to also use words to our advantage.
Yeah.
And I think abortion victim photography focuses on the fact that, first of all, we're talking about the victim. And someone is being victimized. And we use all kinds of victim photography, and that's widely accepted. People who are victims of genocide in other countries, people who are children who are starving in some parts of Africa. Images like this are actually photography, victim photography like that is often presented even in billboard form. Yes. To get people like you and me to say, I need to sponsor a child every month, or I need to send money to this campaign that is responding to this human rights violation happening in this other part of the world. So I think that images can be used on a wide scale on billboard form, but what is the text message that goes with it? What is the organization presenting it? The website that you then go to, is it going to be vicious? Is it going to be verbally vicious, or is it going to be strategic and wise and thoughtful and thought-provoking?
All right, because you did say that these could be used well and poorly.
Exactly. So you could be vicious. You could be angry. Sure. So people who hold the images but are yelling at people, or
this is what you're doing.
or you're going to burn in hell, or different comments like that, which give no sense of hope and mercy, because God is merciful. Or the text that could go along, and I haven't thought through, but what negative text could be, but even just what I said being in text form next to the image, well, that's not going to be helpful. But drawing people to think deeper with the evidence of what's going on, and bringing it to an area where they're encountering it, because if you didn't, they wouldn't otherwise encounter that message. All of that, I think, is very good.
Yo, thanks for watching. You can watch the entire episode on YouTube if you want. You can listen to it at The Matt Fradd Show by subscribing on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And feel free to support me, patreon.com/MattFradd.